Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
This is Fish Jelly. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. My voice is escaping me.
Oh, you're being punished.
Well, I probably deserve it.
Wow.
There's a lot to talk about.
Sounds so puritanical. Okay.
Hopefully I'll be sacrificed soon.
Oh.
I saw that late last night, like Saturday night, so different time zone, but in North Macedonia, there was a big nightclub fire.
Uh-oh.
And like 60 people were killed and hundreds were injured.
Oh.
Yeah, of course there's video, but these sorts of incidents are always really sad because you think like, it's a lot of young people and they were just out trying to have fun. And I saw that like local law enforcement has issued arrest warrants for a couple of people.
Oh.
So I hope that this wasn't deliberate. From the video I saw, it looked like pyrotechnics were involved, but maybe they're trying to get those people apprehended to question them. The details are not clear except that lives were lost and people were injured. But
God, remember, I think I was in 10th grade and somewhere in the U.S. that happened. It was a pyrotechnic thing at a nightclub somewhere I don't remember where in the U.S., but that was a big deal.
My only other thought is, there are people taking video as this structure is burning, which is just like, like you need to get out.
Right.
You need to safely exit the building. But I guess with this age of everyone wanting to
sits around and records, yeah,
like you're just watching this place burn and then they're injured. Get out safely.
But I mean, you and I are often at venues, and the first question, usually you say it, is like, what if there's a fire?
Oh, I say that every time we're somewhere crowded. Like, this is crazy. Because I'm even in here right now.
Because last weekend I was at Los Globos, and it's like, oh my, why? Okay, I like that there were two different dance floors, but it's like there's kind of this treacherous trek up and down these stairs, and people are, obviously drinking and whatnot. And it's like this. Okay.
On the rare occasion that I do go to a concert, because this nightclub fire in North Macedonia, there was a concert happening. So I believe like 1,500 people had piled into this place. But on the rare occasion I go to a concert, which in the past few years is exclusively to see Janet Jackson, because I'll usually go to multiple shows.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say for the last leg of the tour that wasn't the Vegas one, the first show was in Palm Springs, so I stayed through the encore and waited for people to leave because I was front row. So I just thought, okay, well, if I try to exit, I'm literally going to be caught because I'm like in the very front. So by the time I get to the exit, everyone else is leaving. So I waited until they literally told me, like, you have to move. But then for the second show I went to, which I believe was in DC, I knew what the encore was. So I left early so that I wouldn't get caught I just feel like this kind of shit makes me so anxious and people have no chill. Like the minute something goes down, people start running. Because when I went to that what's that one thing in Vegas that I went to?
Friends and Lovers.
That's it. Friends and Lovers. I left early because there was an incident. Well, I was frustrated because I was so excited to see Busta Rhymes and the sound was horrible. And then it just felt like there was overcrowding, and there did end up being a surge like shortly after I left in that area that I was in. So I think that made me super anxious. But, it's not the fault of anyone who was hurt. Like, they went with the intention to have fun.
Well, right.
So it's just really sad to see. But I do think like, for sure, in my current point in life, if I feel uncomfortable, what I'm not going to do is stay and record. I probably,
right.
Just be safe. Like use your spidey sense. And if, like when people start, I don't go out mainly because I just feel like I just don't feel safe. It's not worth it for me. But it's not about me. It's these people who were hurt and killed, which is tragic.
I agree. Yep.
Moving on, So we know last week Wendy Williams had slipped a note out of her window from that memory care unit she's in, saying basically like help. And so ambulance came, picked her ass up, took her to the hospital. She was evaluated. They said she was fine.
Mm-hmm.
So of course she's using that. She's done a few interviews in this past week, basically saying like they said I was fine. And it's like the emergency room staff didn't assess you for your memory.
Right.
They assessed you because you were presenting as having a medical emergency, even though you walked out of the facility looking just fine when they put you in the ambulance.
Well, when you told me about that, my first thought was Blanche Hudson in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane throwing a note out the window.
Well, or even the remake where she throws that cassette
Yeah.
out.
Call my doctor.
But yeah, I mean, it's just sad because then she went on The View and
Oh, God.
like it was a pre-recorded phone interview, but just saying the same thing she keeps saying. I don't want to be there. I don't like my guardian. I'm too young to be there. Everyone's old. They're 90, 80, 70. I'm only 60. I like clearly she doesn't understand that she's not there because of her age. She's there because she has memory issues that are preventing her from caring for herself. So it's sad to witness. I saw a video last week of her niece, the TV reporter, taking her to dinner, and Wendy looked out of it, and the niece is just there, like trying to smile. And it's like, your aunt is not well, and it's really lovely that you get to spend time with her, and she should be able to go out and do fun things under the supervision of people who will not take advantage of her.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's all I hope for, is that she can live a nice life and not be taken advantage of. But that was sad to see, and it's sad to hear her trying to explain her situation, because it just demonstrates that she probably does need full-time care.
Somebody I sense will make a really good indie feature that is based on loosely based on what's happening to Wendy Williams, and it'll be like a fantastic part for an actor.
Yeah, actually that could be interesting.
Well, because he could be kind of like Polanski's Repulsion, like this pop icon whose mind is going, and from their perspective, what's happening to them would kind of be devastating.
So only because we're seeing this movie this week, apparently I didn't know this until I read it, that there's all this drama between, or supposed
Snow
drama
White, yeah,
between Rachel Ziegler and Gal Gadot.
mm-hmm.
Like they don't like each other because they have very different political views.
Mm-hmm.
And Gal Gadot is a mother with just more than one child, and this feels like stuff that people are making up. Like,
well, I think they were accusing Disney of having kind of a low profile premiere for it, etc. But yeah, probably a lot of that is conjecture, and maybe a way to get people excited about a film that has no buzz.
yeah, oh well, yeah, this could be just a thing to give it some hype, because then it was like Rachel did press in Spain and Gal wasn't there, but then Gal released a thing saying that it was never part of her schedule that she would be in Spain. And I would tend to believe that Gal Gadot is that lady's not thinking about, she was just working. And it's so weird to create this, if it is fake, like this fake drama, as if all of us who have normal jobs, like, you don't, like, that's just my coworker. Like to imply that I don't like my coworker because I didn't want to hang out with them or be friends is crazy. But
well, just remember all the furor over Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles during "Don't Worry, Darling." It's like
right.
I mean, that made everybody intensely interested in seeing this film that wasn't the greatest.
Well, speaking of acting, Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mom, did an interview and basically said that Beyonce is not going to do any more acting roles.
Oh,
that she's just going to focus on music and like voice work in film. But
the machine has decided. Okay.
And she said that she made that decision after Cadillac Records
in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, she hasn't acted since then, right?
Oh yeah, Dreamgirls was before. I mean, voice work.
Yeah, so she would continue to do that. But
wow.
Well, I mean, I can appreciate being like Beyonce is a top tier musical performer, right? Like her on stage is like unmatched.
Here's the indie film. There's a black woman like Wendy versus this pop star like Beyonce that also can't do what she wants because she's in her own glass tower. Like that seems crazy. Why?
Well, no, the point I was trying to make is like she is like grade A performer. So what? And she has all the money now. Like she can do whatever she wants. Why would I subject myself to doing something I'm not very good at
Oh,
to then be criticized?
but that's the thing.
Because she's not a very good actor.
I liked her in Cadillac
It's
Records.
the same reason why she doesn't do interviews, because she's not good at it, and she doesn't have to. She can still make $1 billion going on a world tour without ever promoting it. Like, why would I subject myself to these bullshit interviews where people ask me the same question over and over again and try to like sneak in questions about my personal life and make me feel stupid? Like, why would I even do that? Although this current Cowboy Carter tour is not selling, but yeah, I mean, if I were Beyonce, I wouldn't subject myself to things that I'm not comfortable with. You know, the other thing is, just because you like her in Cadillac Records doesn't mean that she enjoyed making Cadillac Records.
That's true, but I mean,
Why should she do something she doesn't enjoy just because fans want to?
does she not? But that's the thing. Does she really not enjoy it, or how much is really being decided for her? I guess I'm curious about how much agency Beyonce really has.
I think Beyonce has a lot of control.
Does she?
When you
I don't
watch all
know.
her little documentaries, it's very clear that she's not doing things she doesn't want
You
to
don't
do.
think there's a team of people saying like, "Girl, maybe you better not do that," or "We're just not going to have you do."
Well,
But
sure, I'm
is it-
sure she has advisors, because clearly she couldn't do all of this on her own. But I'm saying that if Beyonce wanted to be in a movie, Beyonce'd be in a movie.
then
So the fact that I mean, I don't know, it makes sense to me. Like, you don't do things you don't want to do.
sure, but she could, if she wanted to, she could self-finance a project for herself.
Right, but I'm saying Beyonce probably doesn't like acting.
Maybe not, but I'm just curious that somebody that was actually in quite a few movies, I would think that something. It just feels like that's a really weird way to shut down this creative avenue for this person. I don't know.
I don't think it's weird. I don't think Beyonce liked acting, because when she was acting a lot, that was when she didn't have a lot of control. She's been very vocal about the record label. Kind of, she felt stifled under Columbia Records,
Sure.
and like limited. I bet that she did that to try to boost her profile, like she wanted to be famous, and that's a great way to do it as a musician, is to take acting roles, and they kept giving them to her even though she wasn't good at it. So I think once she reached the point where she could do what she wanted, yeah, why would I? It's been 17 years, and she is the most popular musical artist out there, with all the money and a very high profile relationship to someone else who's very wealthy. I think if Beyonce wanted to act, like you just said, she could easily self-finance an indie film, and she probably realizes that I'm not as good as this as I am doing something that I make a lot of money doing. Why would I put myself in like
Sure,
the
but
crosshairs of being criticized?
I guess I want to believe that she's just not. It's not all about the money.
No, I'm
but-
saying that she is an artist. Well, I don't know. I to me, it makes a lot of sense. Like, if you're good at something, why would you subject yourself to being criticized for not being good at something else?
But it's, I don't, part of
And also, if you don't want to do it, that's the point I'm trying to make. The reason I brought this up is because it's movie related, but also the reaction to it was like, oh my God, no, Queen Bee. Like, does no one care whether or not she actually likes acting? Maybe she didn't like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then
of
why
course,
does it
but,
matter what any of us think if she didn't like it?
Of course.
Like, if you're a real fan of hers, why are you on Twitter saying like, no, please do this thing that you don't like?
Well, it's just odd that everything is not from the horse's mouth, right? Like like her mother is giving this statement, so it's like, wait, but
well, I mean, Beyonce doesn't have to.
No, nobody has to, but it. I guess maybe that's the paranoid part of my personality, thinking like somebody's making these decisions for her. Then I don't know. But
It's like people asking me why don't I go out? Why didn't I see you out? It's like, I don't have to explain.
No, she doesn't have.
I don't have to explain why I didn't want to do something I don't want to do. It's like when people want to be sexual and I say no, and then they want to know why. I don't have to explain to you why I don't want to do something that I didn't ask to do.
Mhm.
Like, I don't. Beyonce's not asking for movie. Beyonce's not complaining about not getting good roles. There are a lot of actors out there who go on TV complaining about how there are no roles. That like she's not doing that. So the fact that she's saying I don't want to act, I'm just saying that it's funny to me that people are reacting.
It just seems like such a hard line, an ultimatum, especially from somebody's like, oh, didn't they all go to Target once? It's like, I think, does she never get to let her hair down? I don't know. Like that just seems like she's young. That's such a hard line to be like, nope, never gonna act again. But okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, those exact words didn't come out of her mouth. It was her mother's mouth.
Right. Again, so it's just like you have this, like, the most famous person in the world doesn't do interviews. So it's like, well, nobody knows what she thinks.
Right. So, I mean, I'm sure her mom, if I were her publicist, I would have said that Beyonce is not interested in acting and wants to focus on her music and her family because she enjoys that. To me, that's the better answer than I'm never going to do this again. So I agree with you there. But yeah,
because it's like, you look back, like it makes me sad. Like after The Wiz, like Diana Ross didn't do anything film related until what, double platinum.
Well, the problem with that is that I think Diana Ross gave us some really good acting performances, and so it's a shame that we didn't get more.
Exactly.
From her.
Yes.
So that
but that was
but Beyonce. I mean,
but that was a machine ruining. After the Wiz crashed and burned, and that it took so much effort specifically from her. I mean, I could understand why she turned her back.
But not to shade Beyonce. She just, I mean, from everything I've seen of hers, I don't think she's a great actor. Cadillac Records, her as Etta James was the best acting she's done. But I don't think
she's bad in Dreamgirls.
I don't think that she's just like, just like some actors who try to make music, and it's like, you don't have the musicality of a Beyonce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
What's her name?
Vin Diesel?
No, damn. No, every month or so, those videos come up of her dancing really. Haley Duff.
Oh,
Hillary Duff. She has a sister, Haley, right?
Yeah, there's the Duff sister.
It's like watching Hillary Duff perform, but it's like, girl, you should probably stick to doing like sitcoms because this shit.
Well,
we don't need it. In the same way, I don't need Beyonce acting. But anyway, moving on. So Raven-Symoné has a podcast with her wife, Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and then I'll listen to snippets, but I don't really care for the wife.
Oh, I don't.
The wife seems like, I don't know. I don't know these ladies. I mean, I know Raven-Symoné better than her wife, but I think the wife just comes across as like, oh, I married someone famous, and so now I'm attached to them, and I have something to say. And oftentimes what she says is like, oh, because even the way Raven reacts to the things her wife says,
tell me, like, what do we know about this wife? Anything?
I mean, she just looks like she looks like the lady who created Theranos.
Oh, so she's a white lady,
like a thin-haired blonde lady, white lady,
a pencil-thin white woman.
But the reason I'm bringing them up is because Bob the Drag Queen was on, and there was a clip. Like I saw a short of Raven saying that she used to date, that she's no longer bi.
Okay, Elton.
That she's just a lesbian.
Sure, it's a journey for all of us.
And then Bob was like, "Oh, bye to bye,
baby, bye."
As much as I don't like Bob the Drag Queen, I do think he's funny. But he's kind of pressing her, and they're talking about their polyamorous relationship. And but Raven and her wife are monogamous, but anyway.
As a line I just heard in the movie Black Bag, they're flagrant monogamy.
Well, then the wife was, I don't know, like watching, because I watched the entire like 50-minute thing. Raven seemed like some of the things her wife was saying, she was trying to tell her like, oh, well, not that, or that's not right, or they made me a little uncomfortable. But I don't know. People have similar comments towards us sometimes, like that they didn't like some way I said something to you or whatever. But what made me write down a note is that Raven was asking Bob about him being sort of like poly, and also making him define why he calls himself queer, because he says he's attracted to all gender expressions. But Bob all of this to get to Bob. They were asking each other, like, what moment in film made you realize you liked women, men, penises, whatever? And so Bob highlighted a few things. Tay Diggs in The Wood, that scene where you can see his butt.
Oh, I almost put that on the other day.
Or what's his name? Who's in The Whale?
Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser in Tarzan, that nude scene.
George of the Jungle.
George of the Jungle, where he's holding the bowl like naked in front of his genitals. But the moment that made me laugh because it felt really obscure is Bob said he remembered the first time he saw a pair of, as he called them, titties that he thought were really attractive was Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde.
Sean Young.
Doesn't that feel like an obscure reference?
No, well, I mean, he's of a similar age, and I clearly remember renting that video. Well, and Sean Young, we watched that.
She's beautiful.
She is
we
very
have a
beautiful
podcast episode for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just thought that was funny. But moving on to something that is not funny. So, and we were talking about her last week because of Dwayne Higgins from Tony dying, and me talking about Lucy Pearl because of Raphael Sadiq, which of course I was originally talking about Dawn Robinson, my kinfolk. She put out a video last week talking about she's been living in her car for 3 years.
3 years.
Now, I watched the full video on her YouTube channel because, of course, that went viral and all these clips of her saying, I've been living in my car for 3 years. I watched the full 20-minute video on her YouTube channel. She says that she chose to live in her car and that she likes it.
Yes, she's articulating a stance that seems like
not as desperate as you would think.
No, but what did I say to you when you sent me that video? And it was just like, okay, I'm glad that she sounds like she's okay, but this shouldn't be the case for her.
She did say a few things that concern me, and then of course we both watched R&B Divas Hollywood, which, and I've talked about before, and an old friend of mine was on that show. But, so we won't go there right now. But the, she seems difficult, and she has some mental health issues, I'm sure. And I think listening to her full conversation about living in,
well, she was living with her mother in Vegas, right? And
then her talking about her mother, there were red flags there.
Yes.
That her mother's talking too much. And it's like, well, bitch, Dawn Robinson's older than I am. So you are a middle-aged woman who is still stunningly beautiful. She is in fighting form. She has a beautiful voice. And you are part of one of the most successful female groups of all time. You could do something. It's very confusing to me why Dawn Robinson is not working more, but not really confusing because I think based on how she talks, she's probably very particular, very it's just probably hard to get her to do anything that she doesn't want to do her way. And that's why she got booted out that damn group. That's why she had a hard time with Lucy Pearl. I know that the money things were an issue, but also again, from referencing last week's episode, I have researched a lot about Dawn Robinson because I am a fan. And hearing her talk about her business dealings and contracts and having been told some things from people who know inside scoops, I think that she's just not very business savvy, not very financially literate, and has gotten herself in situations that are kind of her fault.
Sure, but...
And so she needs, even in the video you watched, the full-length video, she talks about how she had a manager who was renting her an apartment in LA.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst for her moving into her car because the rent on that apartment that he had her in was $3,200 a month or something like that.
There could have, I mean, you can find something cheaper, but...
Sure, but she also doesn't explain, he was covering it sounds like, but the expectation was that you work.
Right.
And so maybe she didn't want to do that. But I think that doing some other research about her ex-husband, who she was married to for quite some time, I think 7 years, and they had a pretty contentious breakup, and they divorced back in 2010. But he recently, after that video came out, he said that, he's offered her work because he is he has had some success in the music industry. He was part of an R&B group that I'd never heard of and couldn't tell you a song they did, but he has won some Grammys and had some gold records. And he said that he never made as much money as he makes now. He got involved with like Hyatt Industries, and I think he runs like some timeshare stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like a successful salesperson in that industry, and has said that he makes more money doing that than he ever made doing music. And that right before Dawn had told him that she was going to move into that van, that he again offered her a job because he thinks her personality would be great for what I'm assuming is selling timeshare. And of course, she said no. But yeah, it's just very interesting that.
I mean, I know we rag on Tyler Perry a lot, but the one thing he could be good for is be like, throw her some work.
I wouldn't be surprised if he has tried, but that she didn't want to do. That's me speculating, and I shouldn't. I just think that Dawn Robinson is, even in that video, she looked fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how her hair is laid, living in a van and going to the gym to take showers. Although I do see people at the shower in videos flat ironing their hair. But either way, she looks amazing. She sounds like her voice is still tip top. I hope that if she's happy living in the van, then let her continue. Although I'm going to get to it in the next topic, there is a proliferation of people like van life. And I do think that it's, we live in an area where we pay a lot of property taxes.
Uh-huh.
Our property taxes are more than what people pay for rent.
Uh-huh.
Like we pay well over $1,000 a month in property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And to have like people in tents, people having full-on structures on the sidewalk, people living in RVs and vans, it's a little frustrating because they do create a nuisance. They make a lot of noise. There are people with generators they're loud.
They are, yes.
There are sound ordinances that these generators exceed that decibel level.
Well, you're also, I think, nothing can be parked more than 72 hours.
There are sketchy people constantly like surrounding these vans. They dump their trash. They dump their waste.
Well, you know what we learned recently?
Go ahead.
About these RVs is that the people in them are oftentimes not the owners.
There's this underground world of like RV Airbnb.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is troubling.
Well, because that's exploitative.
Well, because also it's like people, yes, as someone who pays a lot of money to live where they live, and it is, people can be mad at me because I've gotten nasty comments about complaining about people doing their personal grooming at the gym, but it's two things. It's like an eyesore, a nuisance. I feel unsafe. Like there are people digging through the trash. There are random people at all hours of the night running around. So I feel like that I have to be extra vigilant about making sure the gate is locked, the garage is closed, because who knows? And when we first moved into this place, there were people, because it was new construction, people had sort of squatted.
Oh, yes.
And so it took us months before people realized like you cannot. There were many times that I had to go out and tell people like you cannot sleep here.
Or before there was a gate, there were times where somebody would come trial the doors to see if they were open.
So not just is it a safety issue, but it's a human condition issue. Like the fact that we live in a place where people can't afford housing and that people are renting dirty RVs to sleep in because they can't afford rent. It's a much bigger issue that I'm not prepared to talk about. It was really about Dawn Robinson, but also it brings me to our next topic, which someone sent me this trailer for a documentary I knew nothing about. But there's a new documentary called DeBarge, and it focuses on James and Randy. And of course, people should know that James DeBarge was married to Janet Jackson. He was her first husband. They had the marriage annulled.
A secret marriage.
And she has said that she truly loved him. Janet Jackson has said many times that she truly loved him and that it was his drug use that made it possible for her to agree to the annulment. Because of course it was her dad who said, you cannot stay married to this man. If you should type in James DeBarge documentary, and one of the first pictures should be a picture of him and Randy. James is unrecognizable. He looks like a skeleton. They're living in these RVs. That are like, I mean, it's just unbelievable that these people with this.
God.
Yeah. I mean, it's really sad to look at. And Yeah. I mean, I am, of course, interested in the documentary, but it's really sad to see. I mean, it's clear that they've had drug issues, alcohol issues, just just with a cigarette hanging from their hand every time the camera's on them, living in these dirty RVs, and then still playing music and then talking like they're like one moment I saw was I think it's Randy telling James like, yeah, go work on another song or as if they have a chance of ever performing again. But yeah, that was kind of heartbreaking to see.
Wow.
And then my last note in this section is again, I know times are hard and people are struggling, groceries even, but I'm getting so tired of people stealing from the self-checkout because it's
How do you know that? What do you mean?
it's like these people bring these big carts of groceries to the self-checkout and you know that they're trying to like swindle some stuff. And listen, the point I'm trying to make is like there needs to be a limit. I think it should be whatever, because you know that self-checkout has a scale on both sides, right? I think it should be whatever you can fit on the one side that goes on the other side. That way they can compare like, okay, there was 12 pounds of shit on one side, there should be 12 pounds of shit on the other.
It doesn't automatically do that?
No.
Oh.
I think all it does is recognize that like you scan
these bananas and they weigh 45
like a
pounds
watermelon.
more. Yeah.
But it's just, so the reason I'm complaining is because our local grocery store, the self-checkout is bigger than the regular checkout. So you're pretty much forced to go to self-checkout unless you have alcohol. But then you just get all these people there who are clearly trying to pull stunts. And so it takes forever. Like, I just, and then the staff don't even, I don't know. If it were like, I mean, the staff don't seem to care either. They're too busy socializing. And then it's like, you see this person with like $300 worth of, well, actually $300 of groceries is not a full cart.
Not that much, no.
But you see some lady with a full cart of groceries and they're just slowly looking around like, okay, you should force them. Like, we're going to open up a lane to take you because this is ridiculous. Like, you've been here for 20 minutes trying to, that's a random rant, but usually I don't even go to the grocery store anymore. It's you.
Yes.
Or if I drive there, I just make you go inside.
That's true. You do that to me.
I can't stand it.
Well, that's the thing. If you're gonna do something ratchet, do it fast.
You know, I like Delta work and her podcast, Very Delta, and I'm very Delta about self-checkout. I don't work here. Why do I have to do this? Like,
I don't mind self-checkout.
No, I mean, when it's convenient, it's great, but they don't make it convenient. I've been standing here for a long time while you have all these people trying to steal shit and ring up shit weird and like, I don't.
I mean, hey, you know, there are tricks one can do.
I'm not mad at it. I started off by saying, I know times are hard. Shit is expensive. If you want to ring up your, what are those fancy, those pears that taste like grapes? If you want to ring up those expensive ass Asian pears as bananas,
cotton candy grapes, those bananas, sir.
Listen, I'm not mad at it. All I'm saying is don't come in with $500 worth of groceries in a cart and then spend half an hour trying to finagle like whatever you're doing.
Well, it's just,
and I'm not even blaming them. I'm blaming the grocery store. Like, if you see someone doing that, you need to, it's like TSA. You need to take them to the side and say, we're going to open up a lane to get you out of here. And also make sure that we ring up all these groceries.
Well,
like, it's crazy.
It makes me, what's that line Vasquez says in Aliens? Whatever you're going to do it fast.
Exactly.
And that also reminds me of like a lot of bathrooms in gay bars in Berlin will have signs that are like, basically intimating that, you know, whatever tomfoolery is going on in here, like there are others waiting. So get in and out.
I'm not mad if you want to have sex in the bathroom, but you can't spend half an hour in there.
No, or whatever else you're doing, whatever illicit substances. Like if you're going to do that, you have to be respectful.
There's a gay like party on Sundays in LA called Hot Dog at this restaurant called El Cid, which is popular. And I don't go there because it's crowded, but another reason I don't go there is that bathroom situation. And y'all know my prostate is enlarged It's a benign enlargement, but it's enlarged anyway. And so I have to pee all the time. Oh, which is also, I'm told that at the age of 45, you have to start getting screened for colorectal cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my little stool sample here that I need to take to the doctor's office. So I can't forget to do that today. But
Okay.
for all you oldies but goodies, don't forget to get your prostates and colons checked. Anyway, yeah, I have to pee all the time. And then you go to El Cid or Hot Dog, and it's like, there are people doing cocaine or whatever other substances they're doing, having sex in these bathrooms.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be considerate.
Nothing is more annoying to me than when I really have to pee at a bar, and then I've waited to get into this bathroom, and then like 6 or 7 people come out of it, and it's just like, y'all motherfucker. Like,
I'm so petty. I'm gonna call the police one day and have them do a raid on this bar.
no, don't do that, because then they'll close down the establishment. I wouldn't do that. But
I'm gonna start doing shit like that.
What I'll
I'm
do
gonna
is
call the police and be like, they're having sex in this bathroom.
what I'll do is go pee outside, maybe. But
no, because then you'll get arrested for doing that.
Well,
so
sure.
That's like, I'm on one today. I'm losing my voice. I'm irritated. Anyway, okay, moving on to more positive things. 5 on the black hand side, 5 black filmmakers who are not Tyler Perry. Who do we have first?
Euzhan Palcy.
Tell us about them.
She technically is, how Julie Dash is the first African-American woman, technically speaking,
theatrical,
that had a theatrical release. But Euzhan Palcy, I think, is it the first black woman who had directed a studio-backed film, and she's from Martinique. She's from France. So
she comes from France.
And that movie was A Dry White Season. If y'all haven't seen A Dry White Season, and the connect to why I put her on this list of 5 names is Marlon Brando, who hadn't done a movie in 9 years, 1989, and he's only in one scene of the film, and it's a fantastic scene, and he got an Oscar nod for it.
Wow, it also has Susan Sarandon and Donald Sutherland.
Yes, and I own that. It's on Criterion.
Oh, and Zox, I don't know how to say his name. Zox Mokai. Zakis Mokai.
I always say his name wrong, but we've seen him in tons of stuff. And that wasn't her first film, but that was, of course, kind of a big deal. I remember renting that from the public library on VHS back in the day.
Did she get to do stuff after that?
She did. She did a film after that called Simeon, which I haven't seen. And then I think it's been a minute. I do remember when Ruby Bridges was made for TV, because it starred Penelope Ann Miller, and it's about a little black girl going to an integrated school for the first time, I think. I remember the marketing for that on TV. But her first film that is also must-see is Sugarcane Alley, which she made before A Dry White Season. So clearly a very important filmmaker in the zeitgeist. I know that, I often check up on her if she's got new projects. And there was, in the past 5, 6, 7 years, I know she said she was trying to get all these things off the ground, but it's hard to get stuff made. But she has some very notable films under her belt.
Next,
Adamma Ebo, who's everybody else on this list actually only has one feature. But Adamma Ebo, we reviewed her first film, her only film thus far, Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, which I wasn't crazy about, but I do like Regina Hall and Sterling K. Brown.
Yeah.
And it has nice things. There are things about it that I thought were well done. I think I wanted it to feel stronger, because it's about this pastor and his, they fell from grace, and they're about to make a comeback, kind of like Greenleaf a little bit. And they still haven't dealt with issues in the relationship. One being that the husband is gay.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Next,
Jerrod Carmichael, kind of a controversial figure in the community, I know, but he's about to be on next week's RuPaul's Drag Race as a guest judge, I noticed. But we also reviewed his first and thus far only narrative feature, On the Count of Three, which also stars Christopher Abbott, which I remember liking.
It's about suicide, I think.
Yes, it's dark, but there were things
I was thinking about Jerrod, and we tried to watch his reality series on HBO Max, right?
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't get through it. We actually recorded. Didn't we do an episode on struggle reviews?
We did, yeah. And I think it was about the first, was it 2 episodes?
I think so. I don't know. He frustrated me.
I just never returned to it. It felt like it was trying too hard to be provocative. And then I think that it didn't make him look good.
Yeah, I think I was more frustrated with him than like I don't like him. It's not that as much as like I just wish that he didn't present himself that way. It felt a little basic to me.
Yes.
But, you know, as a brown queer person, it's nice to see him doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's interesting. I don't know how I feel about him.
That's okay. I mean,
I'm looking forward to seeing him on Drag Race next week. I would watch his next film. I would be interested in his next project. I probably won't ever go back and finish his reality show.
No, I don't need to know all that.
I felt bad for his little white boyfriend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who do you have next?
Cauleen Smith, whose film Dry Long So I just watched for the first time. I've had it sitting here in my stack of Criterions. But she was working on something about 15 years ago, I think, that never got made. But Dry Long So, it was a Sundance film. It got a lot of attention. And then, of course, I think was difficult to direct another film. But she works on all kinds of other stuff that I know of. Dry Long So, is that a word you've ever heard?
No.
I heard it come up in some 70s film I was watching. I guess it's Gullah language derived that means ordinary. But this film, I mean, that's kind of an ironic title for this film, which is pretty dark if you think about it, and very interesting. But it's about this young woman. She's taking a photography class, and she's in Oakland, I believe. And as part of her project, she's taking Polaroids of all these Black men in the community, but a lot of them are getting murdered and no one cares. It's very, very dark. But she strikes up a relationship with this other woman that she meets crying on a bench that has just been dogged out by her boyfriend. And then those two kind of develop a friendship. And the young woman who we first meet as kind of very femme presenting becomes very butch coded. There's a lot of very interesting things going on in this quite short film, and it's too bad that this didn't automatically lead to something else film wise for Cauleen Smith. But you know, there was 1998, and also it feels much older than 1998 to me. But yes, recommend that.
Last but not least,
Hype Williams.
I'm very familiar with Hype Williams.
And he directed this is an iconic film. And, you know, he's directed a lot of music videos, but he directed a film that I think sticks out in the late 90s. Also 1998. I didn't realize that I was pairing these up either, which is Belly.
Yeah.
Which I have watched with you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the cinematography in Belly is exceptional. Malik Hassan Saeed, I think, need to shout out. There's a sequel to Belly I've never seen, but Hype didn't direct it, that I still want to watch. And what's funny, I also just watched this cinematographer's work on Spike Lee's He Got Game this week as well, and that was not intentional. Anyway, Belly is kind of like a gangland epic, if you will, but Nas and DMX and who else is in the T-Boz. It's got a really good Method Man is in that. It's got a great cast. I haven't seen that in probably 10 years, but yeah.
Well, I feel like just my era of music is like 90s R&B hip hop, and he is probably the most prolific figure as far as visuals.
Mm-hmm.
He's done 2 Janet videos. He did the What's It Gonna Be, Busta Rhymes and Janet video. He did Call on Me from the 20YO album, that song with Nelly. But he's just done he has a very distinct look and feel. Yeah. Has he done, I don't know what he's up to lately. It'd be fun to see him direct something today.
Well, again, it's just like, and I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to, or that wasn't the greatest experience for him, but
sure.
I don't know.
I know if you're talking about Beyonce now, I'm like, I want him to do more. Maybe he doesn't like it. I don't know.
I don't know, but somebody that's so visual, though, I can't understand why. I don't know that. Anyway, it's fine.
Okay, moving on to the restaurant section. You ordered some Indian food.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to impress you by getting a really good deal, and sometimes you get what you pay for.
What was the name of the restaurant? Do you recall?
India's Clay Pit. Not going.
India's Clay Pit.
Yeah, not going back
Ugh.
there. Not going
Okay,
back there.
here's my question. I feel like because a lot of these, I don't know much about much, but it seems like maybe they have the curries, like the base, just pre-made, ready to go,
Mhm.
and they just heat it up and throw some chicken in there. But the problem is the chicken sometimes is just so tough.
Mhm.
Like I want it to taste like it's been stewing in that sauce all day.
I wanted to melt my mouth like butter.
Exactly. Especially when the name of the dish has butter in it.
We didn't
And-
get butter chicken.
No,
but yeah.
we didn't. But even sometimes, like when you get the buttered chicken, it's like at least that dish, the
Like,
chicken has to be tender.
This is rawhide chicken.
But you just got the basics: chicken tikka masala and
Well, it was buy one get one free, and I know you like that.
and I like sag paneer.
Mhm. And they gave me the rice for free, which is rare in Indian restaurants in LA. And I
And-
should have known. I should have
and the
known.
naan. Okay, the chicken tikka masala, that chicken was so tough,
Yes.
like leather.
Mhm.
And then the sag paneer, that spinach tasted like they just dug it up out the ground. Like it didn't get washed or
The
anything.
iron was ironing.
Exactly. And then the naan, I felt like it tasted like when my mom would throw because my mom would throw the tortilla on the open flame. And so then if you leave it on too long, it starts to bubble and get that black,
Which
like,
I love.
pus boil.
Mhm.
The naan just tasted like it was a big tortilla boil.
That's why we have leftover naan, which has never happened before.
We have never had leftover naan.
It's like, I don't need all this right
and
now.
I was like, yeah, I'm not interested.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. Well, there are better restaurants we know of.
Well,
Indian restaurants.
I knew I was in trouble. I went to because I drove to get it, and parking in the little lot where it was at, I was like, ooh, this is a nightmare. Let me go park on the street. And then as I was backing out of this parking lot, I was like, ooh, rats. There are rats in the parking lot.
Yeah, sorry to those people.
Ooh.
Sorry to me because I didn't enjoy my dinner.
Oh, I'm so glad that you didn't come with me to get that, because you probably wouldn't let me get the food. Actually, there was some kind of celebration going on in there, and
Was it a grade A restaurant or you don't know?
there was a celebration going on.
It's a grade B, isn't it? You know that it is. Well, say it now. Say the
Well,
truth.
Uber Eats didn't tell me that it was.
Okay, but when you walked up to that restaurant, was it grade B?
I went up to that restaurant, and I had to go somewhere else mentally. Okay.
No.
Yes.
It was you. So you had me eat grade B.
Well,
Indian
I
food
mean, it was too
with
late.
rats
It
in the
was
parking
too
lot.
late. It was too.
It's not
late.
your fault. Uber Eats doesn't tell you.
It was a good reminder that's why I don't want to be dramatic and say Uber Eats is the devil, but why don't you tell me what these grades are? Why should I have to research and call?
Yeah, if I were there, I would have asked for a refund. I would have been on my full white woman at that Indian spot.
Well, I was definitely.
You need to run me a refund. I need to see it on my Uber Eats app because I'm not doing this.
Well, I had to do a little shimmy to get back there to get the food, because they had some kind of very large celebration in this small space with I guess you'd call it a buffet, but a poor man's buffet. Oh my God. It was, again, you get what you pay for. This is why deals aren't always the best option. And you know what? The other insidious thing, we've talked about this before. I don't even know why I bring it up, but when you have it delivered, you don't know shit.
No, you don't.
Mm-mm.
See, you're really we live near that big food kitchen, and where all those restaurants combine, and it's like the super. They have a name, and I always forget every time I bring it up. But anyway, it's been remodeled by our house, so it looks much nicer.
Oh, okay. I haven't been.
Anyway, you have an aversion because every time you go, there's an issue. But I feel like everything we've ever ordered from. Well, no, that one pizza you got from there.
That was garbage.
That was terrible.
Garbage.
But if I'm like how you had to drive and that whole ordeal to get it, to me, it's not worth the trouble. Let's just order. If we're going to do it, let's just order from that place so you can easily walk there. So at least there isn't that pain in the neck. But yeah.
I don't mind that part of it, but you see, and you see places. If it's that's the nice surprise though. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is a cute place. I would sit and eat here. But ooh,
There are a couple things in the sorry to this man section.
a couple things.
You just can't ever react openly to feedback. You wrote down something, Mildred Burke, Queen of the Ring.
Oh, well, I didn't see the film, and it was in our films we didn't cover, and I don't remember what I said, but somebody thankfully told me that I misclassified, I think, what Ms. Mildred Burke was known for. She was a professional wrestler.
And you said boxer.
Did I? Queen of the Ring is the name of the. Okay.
Look at you. You can't just be wrong.
No, I was certainly wrong, and I will own that. But I also haven't seen the film. Don't know anything about Ms. Burke.
What I'm saying is that you don't have to excuse yourself. You made an honest mistake.
I did.
Okay, and then when I was talking about some lecherous white woman who blamed a black man for killing her kids.
Oh, yeah.
I think we said Andrea Yates.
Well, I said that because that was the name that popped in my head, but sure.
Susan Smith is and this is thanks to a listener. So I'm actually reading their exact message to us. Susan Smith is the one who killed her kids and claimed a black man carjacked her with her babies in the car. She had actually driven her car into a lake with the kids inside. Andrea Yates had suffered a mental break after a bout of postpartum and drowned her 5 children.
Oh, Andrea Yates is like, don't put that racism on me.
Yeah, don't put that racism on me, child. So sorry to Andrea Yates.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Andrea. And then Susan Smith is the one who blamed a black man.
Screw you, Susan. Now we found you.
Yeah. Okay, films released we didn't cover. The Electric State.
Yes, this big, expensive-looking Netflix extravaganza from the Russo brothers. That directing duo that's high up in the sphincter of Marvel. I had no interest in this, and I didn't even ask you if you wanted to review this. I don't think.
I don't know anything about it.
We've seen billboards. It came out on Friday with Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown.
Oh, I really don't have any interest in that.
Mm-hmm.
Projects of interest. The Stranger.
Francois Ozon forges ahead with another project, and apparently he's going to make Camus' The Stranger, which... I mean, that's a fantastic book. I don't know. I think Francois Ozon has lost it. It's almost like he works too much. I don't know. And the most things I don't love lately. Anyway, he's got a new film.
Coward.
Lucas Don't, who I met at the queer party at Cannes last year, who was very lovely and actually came up to me and knew who I was, which surprised me. But he directed that film Close, which we both really liked. Belgian, about the little boys, the one kills himself.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a nice conversation. He's collecting coin for his new film, which is called Coward. I don't know anything beyond it.
Roma Elastics.
I think I wrote that wrong. I think it's supposed to be Roma Elastica. Another queer filmmaker, Bertrand Mandico, who we reviewed his film After Blue, where that dystopic lesbian planet where they're looking for Kate Bush.
Yes.
I find him very interesting. Not everything he's done that I've loved, but this is something about a woman making a film in the 80s and some kind of weird shit happens, but apparently Marion Cotillard is going to be headlining, which is great.
Lastly, Body Heat.
I can't remember if we talked about the Body Heat remake that Kimberly Pierce of Boys Don't Cry and the Carrie remake fame is doing. And, Body Heat itself is a remake of Double Indemnity. So anyway, Body Heat's getting made. So it's the third version of this film, this specific film. But apparently Emma Stone has been offered the role.
Okay.
Do you remember who starred in Body Heat?
Madonna?
No, that's Body of Evidence.
Body Heat. No.
We saw it. We watched it. Okay. Kathleen Turner. It was Kathleen Turner's debut, I believe.
With
I
don't remember that.
Lawrence Kasdan, fantastic film. Sigourney was offered that role first.
Of course she was.
Anyway, I got to keep the reality alive. So
we were very busy on Patreon this past week. We reviewed Pump Up the Volume with a very lovely Christian Slater. Mm-hmm. That movie surprised me.
Same.
I thought I had a lot of good stuff to say. Come and See, a devastating
A day ruiner, if there ever was one. Yeah.
I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, but I don't know when would be a good time to watch it.
There isn't a good time.
Also, I posted a story on Instagram about like just a shot from the movie, and there were lots of comments from people like anyone who's seen it knows it's like a hard thing to get through. But I do recommend it.
Mhm.
We also reviewed Coffee. That, for people who are not paid Patreon members, is free to everyone because Nick paid for it and donated it.
Yes. My favorite 70s Pam Grier film.
We also reviewed Little Shop of Horrors,
which was very fun to revisit.
Which was fun, and I would definitely watch again. And then we are continuing to review RuPaul's Drag Race Season 17. We most recently talked about Anya's bad breath and how Arietti was messy as hell for bringing that up.
Yep.
Thankfully, I don't know if I missed something, but there is nothing in the obituary section.
Yeah, I didn't. Who did? Maybe we missed something. I'm sure somebody died this week. Somebody's dead. Tell us.
The secret film this week was your choice, and you chose the 1972 erotic drama film Last Tango in Paris, directed by Bernardo Bertolucci.
Yep, Bernardo Bertolucci.
Starring Marlon Brando and Maria Schneider.
Yes.
Why did you choose this film?
Well, I've only seen it once when I first escaped home and went to college, because this is a very infamous film. But I chose to revisit it because it's on the eve of the film being Maria. I think that's being released at the end of next week in the U.S. It was at Cannes, and I missed it at Cannes, which is about the actor Maria Schneider, and it's based partially, at least, on the memoir My Cousin Maria Schneider, which I own and I read this week in preparation for that, because I'm not that familiar with her work, and I think that her personal troubles kind of have eclipsed everything she did outside of this very famous movie. And
well, let's take time at the end to talk about the book.
Okay.
Okay.
But that's why I chose this, and so thank you for putting up with it, because it's a film I actually don't love, and I didn't feel any warmer towards it last night.
Oof. What is it about? A young Parisian woman meets a middle-aged American businessman who demands their clandestine relationship be based only on sex. This makes it sound so much more sexy than it is. And middle-aged American businessman I was envisioning someone very different than what we got. Because I read this premise when you first said, because you told me we were watching this before. Usually you don't tell me until the day of.
Yeah.
But I knew about this like several days before. So I read this premise, and this movie is not what I was expecting. So it's set in Paris, and the American businessman is Marlon Brando, and he runs a hotel in Paris, but it's like a flop house. It's like one of those hotels where like they keep the front door locked, and every time you come in and out, you have to like give the key back. But he runs it with his wife, and I believe the wife's mother lives there with them. But we know that the wife, Rosa, committed suicide.
Yes, in one of the rooms.
In one of the rooms. So Marlon Brando is, of course, grieving the loss of his wife, and we see him, and this is the beginning of the movie. We don't witness the wife commit suicide. We just know it happened. So he's looking for an apartment, presumably because he wants to escape the space where his wife killed herself. And while he's looking at this new apartment, there's a lady looking as well, named
Jeanne,
played by Maria Schneider.
Yes.
So they're both looking at this apartment, and then they end up having sex there. A very, extremely underwhelming sex scene, in my opinion.
I agree.
So Marlon Brando decides to take the apartment, and he begins a sexual affair with Jeanne, Maria Schneider. But it's all based on this idea that he doesn't want to know anything about her.
No names, no details.
No names, no dates. I mean, I don't want to know shit about you. Don't tell me about your cousin, what they doing, nothing. And that frustrates Maria.
Jeanne.
To the point where Well, it's frustrating to her, which is annoying to Marlon.
Mm-hmm.
So one day he just ends up leaving the apartment. And this is after, and we'll get to it because it's integral sort of to this Maria Schneider's story. But there's a scene in the movie where Marlon Brando basically rapes her.
Yes.
I mean, he does.
Yeah.
But she still stays. She still comes back. But he's tired of her ass and he leaves. So she shows up one day and the apartment's empty. He took all his stuff. Now, Jean, Maria Schneider's character, she has a fiance. This annoying ass man,
played by the great Jean-Pierre Léaud, who's a key figure of the Nouvelle Vague films.
He's a filmmaker, and so his character the entire film is like filming a movie. What do you call it when they film cinema verite?
Cinema verite, docu-fiction.
And the wife is, or his fiance Jean is like the lead.
But she doesn't know about it.
So yeah, so it's
Really?
like every moment with him is like him trying to film her, but her trying to like connect with him. And
like reality television.
so after she realizes that Marlon Brando's kind of done with her, she kind of goes back to her fiance and gets reinvested in what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
she's like, I found an apartment in Passy. Please come see it. And her fiance comes in there. She's like, this is our new apartment. Hey, do you like it?
But an integral moment, and I think the best scene in the film, is Marlon Brando is attending the wake of his wife, which is basically her dead body in a bed in the hotel,
Mm-hmm.
covered by flowers. And Marlon, I think, gives the best acting in the movie, basically venting to his wife, because we know that his wife was having an affair
Mm-hmm.
with another man in the building, and Marlon knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
He actually kind of intimates what we would call like them having an open relationship, but maybe it was like one-sided.
And that lover is played by Massimo Garotti, Marcel, and you know him from Pasolini's Teorema. He's the patriarch in that.
Oh,
the one we see naked and screaming in the wasteland at the end.
Work. So he has a moment where he's yelling at his dead wife's body, basically like angry with her,
Mm-hmm.
like, and angry about the time they spent in this marriage that clearly was not working for either of them. He does get a chance to talk to the mistress, what's his name? Marcel. And they have an interesting moment that I think there's so much about this movie I think could have been done better, but we'll get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But after he talks to his wife, he realizes that maybe he does want to connect with Jean. So he bumps into her on the street, kind of follows her,
Mm-hmm.
and they go into this Tango bar, which is where the name of the movie comes from. And they have a moment, but the entire time Marlon will not shut up. He's telling her his entire life story, which is obviously in stark contrast to him telling her, don't even tell me the first initial of your name. Like, I don't want to know anything. And now he's telling her everything about him. And at a point, she's just over it. Like, child, I'm not feeling you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
But he's unrelenting to the point where she runs away from him, like screaming for help.
Mm-hmm.
And he chases her into her apartment.
The apartment where she lived with her mother.
And it's important to know that John comes from money.
Mm-hmm.
Like she doesn't need Marlon for anything.
Mm-hmm.
But he chases her into her apartment and she's screaming for help. But finally she gets into her apartment. Marlon's at the front door. She grabs a gun.
Her dead father's gun, which makes an appearance earlier in the film.
He approaches her, tries to hug her, and she shoots and kills him. Mm-hmm. And the final moment of the film is Marlon's dead body on the patio while she's talking to herself, saying what she's going to tell the police.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most like epic moment of the film, which I think should have been the basis for a very different story, is she's talking to herself like, what am I going to tell the police? Like, he was crazy.
I didn't even know his name.
And then she goes, I didn't even know his name.
That'd be a great title.
Yeah, that's the gag, because basically like his behavior towards her in the beginning allowed her to do this to him and probably get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and we can get to it, but I think that should have been the focus of the movie. But anyway, I did not care for this thing. It just, okay.
I like Bertolucci. I think he's got a top tier 5-star film that he did right before this called The Conformist, which has some queer stuff in it. And apparently Last Tango, which is sort of pseudo based on a personal experience of his own, apparently was crafted maybe is about needing to be about two gay men, and Ingmar Bergman apparently said this film only works if it would have been about homosexuals.
Okay. I think that this film is successful in that the themes presented are like provocative and ripe with like good conversation.
Yeah. It's
And
just
there could be a lot of intensity but this thing is so
boring.
dry and boring. Like I think it's trying so hard to be provocative. I think the
Yes.
casting of Marlon Brando is like,
Well, you know, okay, so I don't think he was Bertolucci's first choice by any means, but like Alain Delon, I think might have been considered beforehand. And Belmondo, like a lot of people didn't want to do it either. Like Belmondo, I think said that he would refuse to be in a porno. So we have to remember the context of the time that it came out. This was very controversial, but also remember that this is Brando on the rise again, because the 60s were kind of a hard time for him. He was in a lot of flops, even though like one of those, I love Reflections in a Golden Eye. So this was kind of this was the same year as The Godfather, although released theatrically a year later in the U.S. because, of course, there was so much controversy over the sexual nature of the film. So yeah, and then Maria Schneider is a not notable person, a budding actor with her own story that would come to be clearly defined by this movie. But Bertolucci, I don't know if you've ever seen anything else by him, but he directed a movie that won Best Picture, The Last Emperor in '87.
Oh.
I mean, he's a major, notable cinematic figure.
I don't like the cinematography.
You don't?
No.
Oh, okay. So that's one of the things I did like about it, Vittorio Storaro. Oh, and speaking of which, right after this, Bertolucci did a film called 1900, which is a 5.5-hour epic. There was a listener, apparently that was playing at the Vista Theater this past week, and somebody kept saying like, you need to see it, it's only playing this week. And I'm like, there was no way I was able to.
Because, and who am I? Nobody. But if I could rework this in my head, to me, it would make sense that the space where he's having this affair with this woman, right? Because it's very isolated to this apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and then he's in this shitty hotel he owns with his wife, who clearly they did not have a happy marriage. And then the city streets of Paris. I feel like the three spaces should have felt very different. I feel like the hotel should have felt like a trap, like prison. I feel like the apartment should have felt like this exciting place, and then Paris should have felt like this beautifully romantic environment. But it all just feels very like dingy, and I don't know. I did not. Towards the end, when we see Maria's character running around Paris, there was a little more life to it.
I really like how Paris looks
I
in
didn't.
it. Oh, so Vittorio
Especially
Storaro,
thinking about the movie Maria with Angelina Jolie.
Oh, sure.
I kind of wanted Paris to feel more like that.
But it's also capturing like what Paris looked like then as well.
And then thinking about maybe like the apartment in Possession, like maybe the apartment they occupied in this film should have felt more like that, like this like alternate reality.
That's what it reminded me of an old film called The Enchanted Cottage, where these two ugly people come together in this magical place and they're beautiful to each other, but only in there.
Right. I'm just saying that I don't think that there are clearly three different environments that we're playing with in Last Tango in Paris, and it all felt very dingy to me. And
well,
where's the excitement? Where's the passion? Where's the fear? Where's the frustration? Where's the danger? I don't feel any of that.
I agree that there's none of that. But do you remember the paintings that are shown in the opening credits?
Mm-hmm.
There's two of them. Those are Francis Bacon, who apparently Bertolucci was also obsessed with. And it's portrait of Lucian Freud, who was one of Bacon's rivals, and study for portrait of Isabel Rawsthorne. And apparently, Bertolucci the only note he gave to Storaro was that he wanted the film to look like a Francis Bacon painting. So I think that was all but what you just said about it's kind of an emotional void, I agree with, which is flabbergasting to look back on what the major gatekeeper critics of the time were saying, because Roger Ebert called this one of the great emotional experiences of our time, and I could not disagree more.
The only moment where I felt something was when Marlon Brando's yelling at his wife.
Yeah, well, yeah, because that's the only, it seems that there were emotional stakes there. I mean, everything. I don't think Maria Schneider's bad in this, but I feel like I don't really know anything about her character.
She was giving me Pia Zadora in The Lonely Lady.
Okay.
I was like, that's a fun movie that I could watch over and over, but I just thought she was annoying. And I understand that she's supposed to be like this naive younger woman who's not reading
A tabula rasa.
who's not reading the room. But
Mhm.
here, this podcast is going to be so long. I'm just going to start going through my notes. The opening sex scene, first of all, Marlon Brando in this film looks like he would throw his back out at any attempt at thrusting,
Mhm.
and that he probably also has erectile dysfunction. The fact that this woman, who's a beautiful young lady, takes to him that way, and then
immediately,
I don't know that, like, because they try to show him like ravaging her,
Mhm.
and just none of it. Also, I'm older than Marlon Brando is in this movie, and I don't know.
I mean,
I think he looks tattered. I just don't
does.
believe, like, when he grabs her, that, because we only see them have sex once, which is the opening.
Well, you see him
Besides him raping
hunched
her,
up on her, yeah.
but which we'll get to for sure. When he grabs her, and all I could think is, if I tried to pick up someone like that, and I'm definitely in better shape than Marlon Brando was in this movie, I would fully throw my back out. He looks like, I mean, it just is like, who thought that this was, what am I supposed to feel? Like, how am I supposed to believe that this woman is, what is she drawn to him for?
Exactly.
She just likes decrepit older men?
You know what's
then
funny?
Why? What is her backstory?
One of the supporting characters is played by Catherine Breillat, and I think this is before she directed her first feature, and she has some of the, I think, best construed sex films on cinema anywhere. But she, I would have wondered what someone like her would have done with Last Tango in Paris, and how much different we would feel for Euzhan if Catherine Breillat had directed this.
Who's that one lady? Oh my God. Pauline Kael.
She loved it.
She thought this was like a feminist, like,
no.
I just think this feels so, like, again, early 70s, like,
even without what's come out about how Maria Schneider, her claims about how she felt and how this went down, and I think was corroborated accidentally by the director. This feels like an old man getting to play with young things movie. I don't know.
Yeah, that's how it feels to me. I think that this young lady is so basic.
Linda Blair came to mind watching.
Well, yeah, I mean, not just her look, but just this character. Like, who is she? Why is she drawn to this man? She comes from means. She has a fiance, a handsomer, younger man.
She's put in a strange situation. And I agree that the film is doing some interesting things, but you don't know, there's no depth to her.
And then I'm not saying that this man, Marlon Brando, playing him can't be appealing, but I feel like I need to understand why.
Yes.
Because, like, it just...
So Jean-Pierre Léaud, her boyfriend, her fiance, is filming her and intensely scrutinizing and interested in her past and details about her life. And of course, the exact opposite is happening in this sex fantasy scenario with Brando, whose name is Paul, I think. And kind of how neither of those situations really works for her on a level that's emotional and physical. Like, they need to connect somehow. And it's at the point where the film, where that connection is imminent, where violence strikes.
Okay, I'm just going to keep going through my notes. So Marlon has a moment with Rosa, his dead wife's mom. They're arguing about the funeral because the mom wants a religious funeral, but Marlon's screaming that Rosa wouldn't have wanted that. She didn't believe in that. And again, it's the early 70s. And so I just think that there were so many areas to play with, like this. Because what I interpreted that moment is like, you didn't understand our marriage. Like, we didn't have a traditional marriage. My wife was out here diddling this other man. And here you are trying to do something that you like. This is so far from what my daughter would have, or my wife would have wanted.
Well, but also in death, like, we put people back in that box, like we reclaim them properly. And it's like, but why? Well, she wasn't living that way.
So the next time we see Maria and Marlon together, they're like naked well, she's naked. She's always naked, and Marlon is
Marlon
not.
didn't want to show his penis. Yeah, and apparently Bertolucci, who
He doesn't even show his. He's never without clothes on.
he shows his butt. He mooned someone at the
That's
end.
the only time we see anything.
But apparently he thought that his penis would shrivel up on set, and then Bertolucci felt weird about it because I think some stuff was shot because basically the Brando character is a cipher for Bertolucci, and it felt like he couldn't look at himself that way, which is so stupid. But whatever, that's.
But the second time we see them, like, they're not having sex; they're just kind of being intimate. Maria's character goes, "Maybe we can come without touching." And I thought that sounds like something I would say to someone I'm not attracted to. Maybe we can have sex telepathically because I'm not feeling this.
You know what that sounds like? We're gonna be here a long time, and that would give me anxiety.
Well, it made me think of Sting.
Oh yes,
his tantric sessions.
Tantric,
but Sting is attractive.
Like on the rare occasions where I've met somebody that's like, oh, I'm into tantric, I'm just like, oh.
So then we get a moment where the two of them, because Marlon's insisting that we can't share personal information, they start doing like moaning and grunt, like caveman talk. I found that grating.
It's not cute for sure.
Then at a point he finally starts to say like, well, okay, you can tell me like true stories, but I just don't want to know like names and like identifiers. And it just, okay, that's another area where I think there could have been so much to play with that I just don't get a sense of like, what, not that I cared about Marlon's character, but what is he looking for? What does he need? So he was in this marriage that was not satisfying to either party. They stayed together for a long period of time. Now she's dead. Now he has this freedom to do what he wants, and this is what he wants to do. And so it's like, okay, that could, like, I could see that being a story, but why? Like is this something that he wanted that he couldn't get from his wife?
Well, yeah, we don't know.
Like sort of like no strings attached.
It seems like that was probably available to him already.
But that was what I was going to say. Yeah. Like, but then it sounds like when you're talking to, what's that man's name? The mistress?
Marcel.
When he's talking to Marcel, I understood that Marlon says, oh, I knew all about you. So it's like, well, if you knew your wife was having an affair with this man, then it seems like you probably could have done the same. So then you needing this situationship with this younger woman seems kind of like why are you putting so much on it? Like,
well, it feels like the wife is speaking volumes beyond the grave more than Maria Schneider's character. With that, we get her husband and her lover. She insisted on giving them matching pajamas.
Well, then that's the next point. So when Marlon meets Marcel, this other man, we find out because he lived in the same building they lived in this hotel, this shitty hotel they own. And we find out that his wife basically tried to make Marcel a carbon copy of Marlon.
Which feels very possession.
Yeah. Like buying him the same pajamas, trying to paint the bedroom they're having sex in the same color as her bedroom with her husband. I found that very intriguing, but of course it goes nowhere.
Well, but it's creepy because there's a ripped up part of the wallpaper.
And Marcel explains,
like, she would basically going crazy one night. I only stopped her because she was hurting her nails.
She broke off or ripped off her nails.
Okay.
So like she had some anger issues. Like that, again, that's all very interesting, but it goes nowhere.
But again, that one scene, I think holds more of an intensity between two humans than anything between Brando and Maria Schneider, because we also get Marlon Brando starts pawing Garotti's body, and he's like, "How do you stay so slim? I bet you were so handsome 20 years ago." And Garotti looks at him as like, "Not as much as you." Like there's an intimacy there that never, in my mind, comes up between the two leads.
Well, I thought that was probably the second best moment in the film, but there was so much potential lost because he asked him, like, how do you keep such a flat stomach? And then Marcel says, I have a secret. And then he starts doing pull-ups.
Girl, that's not doing anything for your tum-tum.
Is that engaging your core enough to be the secret?
I mean, he was doing things, he was engaging his core, but not like that's...
Well, it also made me think of the movie Good Grief on Netflix, the Dan Levy movie that I didn't like, where that film also missed the opportunity because the basis of that movie, for people who didn't watch our review or watch the movie, is that Dan Levy's husband, Luke Evans, ends up getting killed. And then, so of course, Dan Levy has to pick up the pieces of their life together, and through that finds out that Luke had a separate life in Paris, actually.
And a pied-à-terre, yes.
And he had bought this pied-à-terre and had this boy living there, man, and that he had like a separate relationship. And at one point, Dan Levy finally meets this guy, and then the film doesn't do anything with it. So I thought, oh, this film at least is going a little bit more into like this connection. But I just thought, oh, wow, like that could have been an interesting basis for a movie, like these two men. But again, early 70s, written by probably two old men who just wanted to make a movie about sex with a young woman instead of exploring their own insecurities. Because like, if I wrote a story about like, oh, you die and then I connect with like one of your side pieces and then we sort of learn, like, I think it could be a really beautiful story about maybe a side of you I didn't know, which also helps me learn more about myself. And then what if it ends with me becoming, like finding a friend in this person. But of course it would not start out that way. There'd be a lot of anger and resentment and, like I think there could be a lot of levels, a lot of emotion, a lot of passion. And yeah, this film, like the one moment that I felt like, oh, it's going to take me somewhere. Then it's like, nope, we're doing pull-ups and on to the next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's funny. I think
because I think we immediately go to, well, no, that's the rape scene.
Yes, the scene that was not in the script.
Okay, let's talk about that. So Maria Schneider,
19. Brando is 30 years her senior.
Looking terrible.
Come on.
So there's a scene where she's kind of upset. I think it starts off with like she's in bed, ready to do their normal thing that we've never seen, and there's a rat in the bed. So she's upset. Like,
oh no, that's after she was Jean-Pierre Léaud is.
Oh, you're right. The rat scene's after
filming her get her wedding dress on.
Yep.
And there's a rainstorm and she runs away. She flees to Brando.
The rape scene is. I think he's just. Whatever.
He for the rape scene, she's upset. He's eating on the floor.
He asks her for some butter and she grabs a stick of butter and throws it at him.
Go get the butter, a famous line. Yes.
Then he comes over to her, kind of like turns her on her back. So she's lying on the floor on her belly. He pulls down her pants. She sees him take butter on his fingers like lube. And then I guess shove it up her ass. And then we see him get on top of her. And he hunches on her. We see like a few thrusts while she says no. And that's it.
Yep.
It's just such a poorly shot scene. It looks so crazy. It doesn't even look like Marlon's character undid his pants. You just see Marlon's tattered body just like laying on top of this woman.
But this one scene is the nexus for so much turmoil.
To think that this woman had so much trauma off of a scene that didn't even play well is so crazy to me.
I agree.
You know what's most shocking about that scene? It's not even the actual rape scene. It's the fact that, is it right after Marlon Brando does a backflip?
Yeah.
And it's him.
And it's him, yeah.
I just think that poor lady, to have endured that thing and then to have it just not even be.
And then with the next scene we get with her, it's just like back to, normal between these two characters. But, and it's not, it's part of the culture's fault as well. But, and for how we treat women versus men and that we weren't, I think this blew people's minds at the time because, it's rated NC-17 and looking back.
Well, it was rated X, right? When it came out.
But
and then it switched to
NC-17. But looking back, like what, over 50 years later, it's like, what was so shocking about this?
So then after this scene, then some things happen, but then they're having a moment when Marlon tells Maria, go grab the fingernail clippers, clip those 2 fingers. Okay, now finger my ass. And then he's telling her, I have an aversion to people being vulgar for vulgar's sake. It's not sexy. It's not shocking. It just makes you sound trashy and basic. Like, I think a sophisticated person can relay
adolescent
adult things in a way that's like like I prefer a more matter-of-fact adult approach to conquering these themes, and not just saying like, I mean, I can't even use the language on the podcast because we'll be demonetized, but his character loves to talk about pig sex, and it just feels like whomever wrote this was trying to be vulgar.
They're trying to provoke.
They were trying to be provocative by being vulgar.
Well, just think of
and thinking that's edgy.
The rape scene is like with the birder. Bertolucci claimed that there was such a scene in the script. Like Schneider knew that there's some kind of violence was going to happen, but she didn't know about the butter. That was the final revised statement that he made after the furor of Me Too. It was that, and Schneider has already, she died in 2011, was that she didn't know about the butter.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty traumatic thing to have happen. And then I'm sure as a young actress who just was happy to be there and felt like she didn't have any control as it was happening, you know, what is she going to do except take it?
Well, and there was nobody that she could talk to then. There was nobody to say like, I feel this way about this
no
scene.
Intimacy coordinator.
And you know, I don't think you even need it. There was no resource for her to go to say,
well, right.
I don't feel right about this.
Well, the power dynamic was such that she couldn't.
Probably. No, Brando's a major star. Bertolucci's a major director. What's she going to do?
So getting to the scene where Marlon is talking to his dead wife's body, and he starts off by saying like they have her painted up like a hooker, and she never even wore her makeup like that. He ends up wiping it off of her at the end. But he starts off by just sort of saying the things to her that he probably should have said a lot sooner about how their relationship made him feel. And I thought that was the meat of the story for him, that I wish we would have focused on more. Because also, how interesting would this have been if we would have, because oftentimes stories like this usually revolve around the woman in the marriage feeling unsatisfied and having to deal with her husband's infidelities and how she tries to find some semblance of satisfaction. But how interesting would it have been if they would have flipped that, and it's Marlon's character who feels betrayed and unsatisfied, and being, you know, his wife constantly rejects him, and so he's out there trying to find something.
And then we would, well, hopefully have a clear sense about what this young woman is bringing to him. And
right.
But like, I don't get that at all.
No, not at all. But I do think that 2 minutes of him there was probably the best part of the film. But immediately after that, there's a scene that confused me so much, because he hears someone banging, because he's in the wake where his wife's dead body is in the hotel. So he hears someone banging on the front door, and it's this woman who's painted like Baby Jane, and there's this man behind her, and it's obvious that she's a prostitute, and Marlon is not letting her in. And the lady's screaming like, the owner always let me in. The owner always let me in.
I'm an old friend of Rosa.
And I'm an old friend of Rosa. So clearly she didn't recognize Marlon as like, well, he also owns the hotel.
Right.
But when she says, I'm a friend of Rosa's, Marlon opens the door. And as soon as he opens the door, the John runs away. So the prostitute, which is an old lady, she's like, look what you did. Now he doesn't want to be here. You need to go get him. So then we get Marlon chasing this man down the street. And the man's like, dude, look at her. Like, I didn't realize she was that busted. Like I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I'm glad that you didn't open the door.
And don't tell her you found me.
And don't tell her. And Marlon gets mad and beats that man up.
And calls him an F slur.
And trying to get him back. I didn't understand that scene.
It is a confounding scene, albeit one of the more interesting ones, because I actually was having thoughts about it. But yeah, I think that he was coming off of a vulnerable moment with his wife. This woman, I think he associated this woman with his wife, and that she was denied something that he felt guilty or responsible for. And so he was trying to rectify that, and realizing that was futile, he chose violence. I don't know. That it's definitely one of the more interesting, intriguing moments.
It's at this point in the film we also learned that Marlon's character is 45, which had me shook.
Yeah, like, woo.
Again, no danger, no stakes, no emotion. No one's gonna lose. I mean, I just don't get the sense of, Maria's character might have lost her fiance had he found out about Marlon, but
she doesn't seem love him.
But she doesn't seem like she doesn't seem to love him. So if she did lose him, that'd probably be a plus for her. And then Marlon, there are no stakes. His wife is dead. She dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what are the stakes? What is the danger? I mean, even the rape scene doesn't feel like it's troubling in the sense that something's happening to someone who doesn't want it to happen. But other than that, it's like, and then she stays with him, and I don't get the sense of why.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure she had her reasons, but we don't know. And then what's the emotion? Well, what is anyone feeling? What is anyone feeling? Maria's character just comes across as like a bratty girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this busted ass, decrepit ass man who keeps telling you that he doesn't even want to know what your name rhymes with. And then you keep telling him little, like, it's like you can't help yourself that you want to connect. And then he keeps shooting you down.
Mm-hmm.
I shot you down.
I shot you down. But
then you still stay. It's like, what's wrong with you, girl?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's what's interesting is like she's in this nexus between these two men, and neither of them work for her as they stand. It's something more in the middle but when that chance presents itself, then she lashes out violently. The Blu-ray that I have, I think it's so funny. The things the passion is even hotter on Blu-ray, it says, and
because we can see
breasts, no,
or because we can see Marlon Brando's eyebrows filled in.
No.
He looks terrible.
This says, though nameless to each other, these tortured souls come together to satisfy their sexual cravings in an apartment as bare as their dark, tragic lives. I don't
What's
think
tragic.
The cravings. What's satisfied? I don't think that. I think that this arrived at a time when culturally everywhere we were just so sexually repressed. This seemed like a slap in the face because we just never got to see anything like this in a sanctioned medium, because porno existed, but this seemed to break down barriers, I guess. And I don't think people could see past that this is superficial and empty.
I know no one agreed with me because didn't we review Crash?
The Cronenberg?
Yeah. Because I had said that it feels like whoever wrote this is like it's there, like someone who's not very, I forgot how I said it, but the feeling was that it's like someone on the outside looking in. Like, yeah, many people may like sex.
You mean a voyeur?
Like that their impression of what perversion, what sex, what these different scenes are like, or their impression, but it's like they're not actually involved in it. Like,
but the thing I liked about Cronenberg's Crash, because it's the opposite of the heat that is written in Ballard's novel, was that these people are obsessed with sex, but are cold and clinical about it, and that's why the violent scene that allows for the sexuality to unspool is like a desperate attempt to feel anything.
Yes, that makes sense to me, and I think Crash is, of course, a better film than this.
I agree.
But I think there's an emptiness to it, like
an inescapable emptiness. Yeah,
it's like when people try to tell me about like being married, or they have an opinion of my marriage when you can't find or keep a man. It is like, don't tell me about, I don't need relationship advice from someone who can't get a second date. Like that's kind of how I feel about this movie. It's like someone's impression of what, I also think sometimes people's own little weirdness and perversions, like that's for you. And you have to be vulnerable, which kind of makes sense of what you already said about Bertolucci saying that he didn't like how Marlon Brando, like that nude scene he shot, how it felt too like transparent. Because I think that, in order to, like, everyone's story is valid, right? Like everyone's experience is valid, but in order to express it in a way that we can connect with, you have to be vulnerable. Like you have to show us the icky parts and the uncomfortable bits. And this just feels so,
we see that. I don't see
it's such an arrogant approach. Like,
we don't see the icky bits. Like you brought up Baby Girl.
And yes. The reason I liked Baby Girl, and I thought the characters that Nicole Kidman and Karen Dickinson played felt so real to me, is because the awkwardness, the uncomfortableness, the people pretending that they, people do things that they're not comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
because they have a desire and they want to explore, but it doesn't always read as like, a 90s erotic thriller.
Right.
It reads uncomfortable. It reads like I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that's why I like that movie so much for those performances. And I think that had this movie been more vulnerable, because really what is so gross about this movie to me is that whomever made it tried to make this Marlon Brando character seem like a stud,
Mm-hmm.
and he is not.
Well, and
He's probably an unsatisfied, insecure man.
yes,
Like, there's a reason we don't
Gone
see
to
him without
seed.
clothes on.
Mhm.
There ain't no, like, him hunching up on that lady. There should have been a moment where it's acknowledged that, like, the dick is trash. You can't even keep it hard. Like, you're not even in, or you're in trying to get into the wrong hole. There should have been something to indicate that this woman is not satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he cannot put it down. And so why is she here?
And kind of working through her own confusion is like, culturally, I'm told that this man should be someone is appealing to be, but maybe coming to the conclusion that I am not.
All the times that I had sex with people when I was younger and cuter, with people who maybe didn't make sense for me,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was probably like I wanted to feel good. Like,
Yes. Isn't that what we're all trying to do?
Someone my age, first of all, when I was in my early 20s, people my age who were attractive didn't want to look in my direction. So it's like, oh, to hook up with a 45-year-old man
that
who's
can
all
offer things, it's
who's-
appealing.
who's
Yeah.
buying me things
Mhm.
and is super excited to be around me. And
Mhm.
that was very appealing. So the fact that this sex is below mid garbage was like, well, that's okay.
I think Brando apparently seconded Schneider, saying that he also felt assaulted by Bertolucci in this film, and apparently none of them ever talked again. But he contradicts himself in his memoirs.
Bertolucci or
Brando.
Brando? Oh,
About working with a titan like Bertolucci.
it's just not vulnerable. But just I have a few last notes. When I didn't understand why Maria's character at the end is like hollering and screaming about Marlon. Did he pose a threat to her? He just seemed like a bugaboo. Like, why is she running down the streets screaming?
Well, she does that a couple times. She acts kind of hysterical. Well, when the rat on the bed, she's like, "It's over. I can't make love in this bed anymore. I don't want to. Our relationship's over." And then that's a very similar scene when they're in the Tango dance hall.
Okay, my interpretation of why she. So if I connect that, because during the rape scene, she is not fighting. She's not screaming. She's just laying there. But then for things that are lesser, like the rat, like this man just trying to talk to you, you're hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
What I took that as was sex doesn't mean that much to her.
Mm-hmm.
She wants a connection. And I think that's why she tolerated this man who's not that sexually appealing to her.
And I think that's why she keeps the fiance around, because there is a connection there,
Exactly,
but a sexless one.
So, I mean, I just think the representation of it felt kind of crazy. And then,
because really, for how this ends up, suggests this film really should have been from her perspective from go.
Oh, so then my final note is I think that a much better angle would have been like more of an erotic thriller that's based on this woman from her perspective and how she was having this affair with this man who was using her and he was abusive towards her. But then in the end, she's able to murder him and she can use the excuse of like,
he followed her.
No, but that I didn't know him.
Yeah, which is true.
Which is true. I didn't know his name. He wouldn't tell me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that would have been a gag. And maybe there's a court trial. I mean, how fun would it have been to have it like the final act is the court trial and she's found or acquitted because she's able to maintain that, like, I didn't know this man.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this man.
Anatomy of a butter.
And he raped me. He raped me. And when I saw him again on the streets and he chased me, I was scared for my life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I don't know. It just seems like there were so many missed opportunities to make something with like impact and real provocation. Is it thought-provoking? Yes. Did we talk a long time about it? Yes. So it has value in that way.
Well, I mean, it was a cultural juggernaut. So it's like, I don't think it's like a film that you can just dismiss, but no. I don't understand the reverence for it. And that's even before we really get to what happened to Maria Schneider.
So let's transition to her. But what would you give Last Tango in Paris?
It's a 2 out of 5 for me. I think it's a chore to sit through.
Yeah, it's a thumbs down. I would give it 2 out of 5. So, do you want to talk about what you learned reading My Cousin Maria?
My Cousin Maria Schneider, written by Vanessa Schneider. Well, it's a very fast.
Is she actually her cousin?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought
yeah.
it'd be funny if she wasn't.
Oh no, she is. It's very, there a lot. Again, I think that Schneider was eclipsed by both this film and then her. She became addicted to heroin and she ruined herself physically, and by the 80s, kind of petered out altogether. Although she did appear in some things, she became very close friends with Brigitte Bardot, who kind of helped finance her at the end of her life, because Bridget recused herself from the public eye to take care of animals.
Oh.
Also a very interesting woman. But it's after this film came out, it defined her, and it was gross reading about all the shit she had to put up with. Like, she'd be on a plane and the flight attendant would bring her food and with butter that she didn't ask for. Like, there would be people would make all these snickering.
That's really comments. Sick.
People did that, but again, people didn't see anything like this. Brando didn't go through shit like that. Excuse me. But yeah, that I think this came to define her and the roles that she was offered. After this, she did Antonioni's The Passenger with Jack Nicholson, who was 20 years her senior and kind of plays a similar person. This girl who appears out of nowhere that has to fall in love with a male lead. Although I'd say that is a better film. This week, I also watched her in something a little more interesting called A Woman Like Ava, which is by Nushka von Brakel, Dutch filmmaker, and which Maria Schneider's a lesbian, and I feel like that was a more interesting use of her. But I think she also, from what I was reading this memoir about her, I think she also felt like she was approached to do these sexually defined roles that other people didn't want to do so freely, and then of course her drug use. I think it ended up being a situation where a lot of directors had to cut around her. So there's some movies like Memoirs of a French Whore where it seems like she has no dialogue, but it's because she couldn't say her dialogue. But she was so notable that, of course, these people wanted to keep her in their film. Wow. But it's just, it was depressing to read about. But I'm glad that I made a point to do that before watching this film again. Because there was, it became a lore on its own. But Maria Schneider dies in 2011. Bertolucci does his last film, which I saw, and I forget the title. Me and You, a decade after
Me, Myself, and Irene.
Not that. The Dreamers was another big hit for him.
Marley and Me
with Jean-Pierre Léaud.
Me, Myself, and I. Didn't you like that song? No, you liked Check on It.
Yeah. Yes.
But who's the rapper on it?
Slim Thug.
Slim Thug.
Yeah. Anyway.
The only podcast where you get an extensive conversation on Bertolucci and a Slim Thug.
Slim Thug.
Shout out.
Good old Slim Thug bringing me back. Anyway, so then, Bertolucci, who was wheelchair bound by then, freely admits that Schneider had no idea. It was concocted between he and Brando that they would do this thing with the butter and assault her. And because they wanted, I believe it was something that they wanted the reaction of a girl, not an actor. Ugh. And it's like, how shitty is that to do? Like, you didn't respect her enough to have any kind of parody like that she was going to be involved in this. So they admitted that. And then that was like 2012 when that all came out. And of course, there wasn't a real backlash until after Me Too, in that all of those statements were resurrected. And then Bertolucci, who's now dead as well, that's when he revised his statement to say, like, wait, she knew something was going to happen with the violent, but it was the butter. It was just about the butter. And it's like, no, it goes so much deeper than that by you treating this human like they don't deserve to know what's going to happen to them. And the scene that, and I don't know that they meant this person harm, but it's like the effect that this had on her was detrimental. And it's not just Bertolucci's fault. It's the culture's fault. It's everybody's complicity in how we treat women. And I don't know how much we've really learned since then, but what's depressing is that it's concerning this film that I think is mid all of this trouble for this mid film, but I don't know. And again, I can see if you love it, I'd be interested in hearing a defense of what is so special about this movie. But I like esoteric art house shit. I like daring. I like provocative. I like weird. But this was boring. It was boring.
All right. Well, that's all we have for this. Next week, I know we're watching that new Snow White film.
Ugh, talk about
And
boring.
then we have reviews for Locked and Misericordia dropping. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
There were a few other things that I'm excited for next week too.
Like what?
Magazine Dreams.
Okay.
Finally dropping.
Oh, I'm seeing that?
Yeah.
In a theater?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. All right. Well, we can't have a 2-hour podcast, so ta-ta.